First up, Jon Stewart. The reason why I have Anya on and is because I wanted a lady's perspective. I want to get because a couple of lady war criminals were on the Jon Stewart show.
Women can do it just as well as men. Sometimes better.
Sometimes better. David Feldman used to have a great joke, and I'm going to butcher it, but it was about, I just want a woman to be president because when women are leaders, they don't start wars. And then he would just start, and then every woman who was a leader of a country started a war. It was hilarious. So Jon Stewart had on the two war criminals, Condi and Hillary. And, well, let's start off with this. So I'm just going to tell you, it's a lot harder to watch than you think. I'm not kidding. I can't watch it. There's like 40 some minutes of it. I've literally only watched about 3 or 4 minutes of it.
Yes.
Just the clips that people put together for the show.
I had to stop it every few seconds just to put a line on that.
I mean, honest to God, this is no. And let me just say this about Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart I am not in his league when it comes to groundbreaking. He did a whole different kind of comedy he introduced people to, and nobody did it better than him. And he won 1 million Emmys, and he should. But there's something that happens when you are at the top of society for 30 years and you're a millionaire for 30. Chris Hayes has written about it, about in the Twilight of the Elite, about just being in the room with those people. It just changes you. Barack Obama talked about just being in the room with those people, how it changes you. Yeah. And so when he's been in the room for 30 years with those people, in this interview, well, I was wondering,
it better change you if you want to stay in the room with those people.
That's right. Happens. And why the fuck would he want to interview these people in the first place, unless you want to really stick it to them? Why would you want to interview them? Anyway, this is so unbelievable. I got to warn you, I got to do one of these trigger warnings because I needed one.
The two of them together is a bit much.
This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. I'm only going to play maybe a couple of minutes of the interview because I can't stand it. But here we go. Here we go.
Just very briefly on Libya, because that was on my watch.
But this is not, again.
No.
And then, so I don't know if you noticed what he did there. But he goes, again, this is not, I don't want to relitigate. You don't have to do, I got the ground rules from your staff. Don't worry, I'm not asking you to relitigate that.
Well, he also thinks, remember the thing to restore sanity festival? Yeah. He also is like, but she's still overall good. I don't know, like Luke Skywalker felt about Darth Vader. I know there is good in you still. He has that kind of stupidity,
Well,
yeah.
Go ahead, Anya.
No, I mean, since you bring that up, I actually traveled. I was living in Michigan still. I was a kid basically at the time, and I organized my friends in school, and we took a bus to DC just to come to the rally to restore sanity because it was billed as this great coming together of people who really want to see change.
And it worked.
And he built the whole thing up to this spiel where he compared U.S. politics to the Beltway.
Yes.
And he just said, he actually put the Beltway, meaning the highway that circles DC.
He put a video of the cars merging, right?
Yes. And he's like, we just take turns and they do what they want. And then we do what we let our neighbor in and we get to go in. And that's how U.S. politics should work. And it's like, what do you mean? I thought, even according to these people that, they just take away our abortion 1 year and then but that's how they keep the political charade going is that they give and take. And that was, he did sum it up pretty well.
You should have called it the Obama years went fine for me parade.
Yeah. It was like, we had our time and now we're going to hand it back to them. And
yeah, then I thought he was handing Trevor Noah, picked Trevor Noah, to cut the Daily Show's face so no one could have it again. That's what I thought. No, that was his $30 million dippy liberal idea of Trevor Noah, guy from South Africa.
It could be. I'm not sure. I thought it was the same thing. But anyway, let's get to this.
Well, I want to make a larger point because, Gaddafi was a bad actor. Everybody knew he was a bad actor. And
Jon Stewart, sure. Unlike you people.
Yeah.
Unlike you. Hey, unlike you. Unbelievable. Speaking of actors, I don't know if you saw Hillary's performance as a progressive who loves hot sauce, but it wasn't exactly a Golden Globe moment.
She keeps it in her purse.
Here we go. So this is stunning. She says Gaddafi was Gaddafi had the best standard of living for his people in Africa. Why he was a bad actor was because he wanted to take the oil and keep it for his people, and he wanted to develop a currency just for Africa. And so you can't do either of those things. And that's why he was a quote-unquote bad actor. His people had the highest standard of living in Africa. So anyway, so this is all propaganda that John...
I didn't know that.
Correct. Just look it up, please. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
but anyway, here's Jon Stewart just confirming their propaganda. He's not like he used to be the best person in the world at exposing propaganda. And that's why it's so unbelievable that now with this new show, or I don't know what this is, I guess he lost all his good writers or something, but this is mental. This is mental.
He's trying to okay, don't get defensive. I just want to get this thing of maybe we should think a little bit. Well, you'll see if we manage to get through it.
Here we go.
Jimmy's right. Libya's standard of living.
I was right about that. They had the highest standard of living in Africa.
Yeah, never heard that one until just now.
There you go. And we came in and we wrecked that country. Well, hang on. We're going to get to those jokes.
You're welcome, Libya.
You're welcome.
People buy cockroaches.
Oh, wait. Hang on. Okay, let's get a running start. Here we go.
Just very briefly on Libya, because that was on my watch.
Yes,
but this is not, again.
No, but my point, I want to make a larger point because, Gaddafi was a bad actor. Everybody knew he was a bad actor, and he threatened to kill his people by cockroaches.
So we decided we'd kill his people like cockroaches because unlike Arabs, we follow through. My God, Gaddafi threatened to kill his people like cockroaches. I knew about the Viagra rape, but the cockroach executions.
Am I missing? I thought you said kill people by cockroaches, not like cockroaches. That's what I heard her say. Am I wrong?
But let's
He's
play.
unleashing a plague.
He was a bad actor, and he threatened to kill his people by cockroaches.
By cockroaches.
So I think, am I wrong? And she's throwing that out like one of his things was like, "I'll kill you."
I'll crush you like cockroaches.
Yeah, because he gave out Viagra. That whole thing.
Can he just kill his own people in a civilized way, like pricing them out of insulin?
Like a good actor.
God. Okay. And even when she's not doing the creepy laugh, she wants to. It's just sitting there all the time. She wants to do it. Here it is.
The United States was actually the supporter of European countries through NATO and the Arab League, which for the very first time came and said, we want to be part of trying to protect the people of Libya. Now,
that's what they wanted. So for the very first time, Europe and the Arab League came together and said, we want to steal Libya's oil and pretend we give a shit about their people. It's time. What a special moment of togetherness.
When history calls.
Go ahead, Anya.
Just to jump in there, I don't know if we want to listen to the full clip or stop it. If we're going to stop on this point, I just want to note, she says for the first time the Arab League requested help in holding a nation accountable. Well, at that time, it was in the midst of the Arab Spring, which was essentially a Qatari and U.S.-backed movement to destabilize.
Right? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Independent Arab states, particularly Libya, Syria, and the Qataris at that time were actually funding Islamist groups in Libya, just like as we saw in Syria they did, in order to destabilize Gaddafi and overthrow the government. And so it was kind of like the Qataris were doing that and then coming to the U.S. and asking for more help. It wasn't as though the Arab world came together. I mean, they were starting the fire and then asking the U.S. for help to go and pour more gasoline on the fire. And the way she presents it is so phony. And Kurt, you were right to bring up the Viagra story because she very carefully mentioned only the cockroaches quote, which it's true. Gaddafi compared the protesters at the time to cockroaches.
Oh, it wasn't using them to kill them. It was they're like that.
Yes,
okay.
He compared them to cockroaches, and then he did wage a war on them for the reasons that I just described. They were actually violent militias, insurgents, foreign-backed insurgents that ended up, raping him with a bayonet. That's how it all ended, because those are the cockroaches he was talking about, by the way, and they're the people that control Libya today. So I don't know why Mrs. Basket of Deplorables is so caught up in like political rhetoric, but she left out the Viagra story because that story was so fake. And they did use that in order to justify the intervention, but it's been so systematically debunked that she couldn't even mention the Viagra story. They can only mention it now with relation to Ukraine,
and that's
trying to sell the same kind of war.
And that is a common technique that they use as a propaganda tool. Is they say the people that we are against are raping people. They're doing it right now. They just the Grayzone just did an article.
Viagra story again.
Yeah, the Grayzone just had a big expose that the woman from the UN admitted that they were lying. Oh, and then the woman, there are two of them. Anyway, so they do this all the time.
Is this some kind of like team up synergy advertisement for Viagra with war propaganda?
It's the B word. Once you say it, it's like, we need to intervene now. And just for the record, the Qatari news outlet Al Jazeera was the main outlet that propagated the claim that Gaddafi's forces were raping people with Viagra. Again, they were the ones behind this. They're hosting the World Cup right now.
Yeah. All right, let's get back to this.
So I feel that particular intervention, we had certain capabilities militarily that nobody else had, which we used to assist them. But, the Emiratis were flying and the Jordanians were flying, etc.
Such great Arab nations, the Emiratis.
The problem, and this is where I think you make a really good point. The problem is, okay, Gaddafi's gone.
Mm-hmm.
His horrible prisons are emptied. What comes next?
Right.
What comes next is chattel slavery. That's what came next, Hillary. The entire country is now worse than Gaddafi's horrible prisons is what came next, Hillary. On your psychopathic watch, which makes you actually worse than Gaddafi. What came next? Jesus Christ.
Science will never know.
Comes next.
And that's always a problem, because there's always
it's always a problem. The question is then, here we go.
Problem because there's always a vacuum.
Yes, there's a vacuum, Kurt.
We know that now.
A vacuum that requires a big red, white, and blue cock. Libya's like a wanton woman with no one to fuck her.
Yeah. But what happens next? That's the...
What? Oh. What the question is...
When you say red, white, and blue, the French were the main beneficiaries of this. The former colonial power
Sarkozy,
of
right?
Libya. They came in and looted Libyan bank assets. They took all the gold, it's all in French bank accounts now. That's not even, just Google it. Red, white, and blue from the United States, from Washington.
And again, Jon Stewart not pushing back one bit on any of this. It's like Candace Owen is doing that. No, I don't even. You know what? I don't want to insult Candace Owen.
Candace Owen asked Trump harder questions.
That's right. That's right. Let me retract that. I retract that. You're right. This is just bad. Whatever he's doing, I don't know. Him, Stephen Colbert, they went from being the best to the absolute biggest shills for the establishment I've ever seen. It's amazing.
He still believes. Like he thinks like Bruce Springsteen's the working man kind of nonsense, and still to this day.
Yeah, here we go.
Because look, dictators don't allow institutions to flourish. So when you take the dictator out, there are no institutions.
That's right.
So that's.
Did you see, John? That's right. That's right. You know your stuff.
As Jimmy already pointed out, the high living standard in Libya was a result of the fact they had actual state institutions there. Strong state institutions, unlike the rest of the region. And then, his prisons were empty because they let a bunch of crazy Islamists out of jail. That is what happened.
And Iraq had institutions. They had to de-Baathify them. That was the big thing.
They had to de-Baathify the institutions. That's what they did. You're exactly right.
But the question becomes, do you then say, let Gaddafi go ahead and kill his people because it's going to be hard afterwards?
Yeah, that's the question. The question is, then, do you let Gaddafi kill his own people the way, you let other countries kill their people as long as they stay on the petrodollar? Am I right?
Right.
Or do you kill both him and his people yourself, along with a coalition of people killers?
Yeah.
Because that's what they decided to do. And then you just do the best you can, I guess, which happens to be worse than Saddam or Gaddafi. So in our case, we decided to the approach like alcoholics, if our alcohol was mass murder. Here we go.
Or in our case, we thought Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. You're going to let that continue, or are you going to take him out? And then do the best that you can.
So he just lets her say it. He just lets her state that debunked lie from 22 years ago. We debunked that lie, John. You were at the forefront of debunking it. You know they planted those weapons of mass destruction stories. You know they planned this. You know the project for a new American century. You know all this, that they wanted to do all those. You saw Wes Clark talk about all those countries they had planned on going into after. You know this is all bullshit, and he just sits there. Look at him like a good boy. He's turned into Andy Richter, like he's just a good boy.
Jimmy, I say,
he looks a little dismayed, honestly.
Let's see where he's going with this, because I think they're walking right into his Frost v. Nixon trap. He's about to nail him. I bet that's what it is. He's rope-a-doping. He's making them think. He's lulling them into a sense
he's
of
lulling
security
them
for the big
boom.
Helping people to recover, you have to recognize that it's going to be hard once you take the dictator out. But John, it's a little bit of a false choice to say, well, then just leave the dictator in place because it won't be chaotic.
It's a false choice, Kurt. We know it's a false choice, Condi. There were no weapons of mass destruction. You didn't think there were either. You knew there weren't. You were happy to kill your own people in the needless killing of Saddam Hussein and his people.
Yeah.
It may not be chaotic.
What I'm saying is,
it may not be chaotic.
If we take
but
that
it might
role
be brutal
on,
against the people.
If we take that role on, can we sustain as a country? You know, when you think
that's not the question.
Bam, there it is, the hammer.
That's also not the. I guess what I'm saying is I'm willing to give you a pass on the outrageous statements that came out of both your depraved mouths on camera just now. But can I at least tepidly bring up how this is also not good for our empire, fiscally speaking? That's what he did.
But is it sustainable?
Is this sustainable? This kind of mass murder and raping and pillaging of poorer and less strong countries of their natural resources. Is this sustainable? Can we sustain empire?
He's saying, can we afford to do that? And
yes.
They're saying, can we afford not to do it?
Look, I'm going to play that again. This is stunning.
This is what he was waiting to say to them.
Yes.
If we take
but
that
it might be
role
brutal
on,
against the people.
If we take that role on, can we sustain as a country? You know, when you think about
can we?
Why couldn't you talk this way to AOC?
Can we sustain? I never thought about that, John. That's bad for our treasury too.
Hey, Jon Stewart. I know I'm a 30-year psychopath, but Jon Stewart's understanding changed my whole world. You just blew my mind, Jon Stewart.
He's pretending that the propaganda of why we went into Libya and why we went into Iraq and why we're doing Yemen and why we did Afghanistan and why we still have troops in Syria, he's pretending that the propaganda is true.
Because he knows how important it is.
He's pretending that the propaganda is true, Kurt.
Because he doesn't want the deplorables to get the wrong idea. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, this is
adult children of alcoholics, like you said.
So Jon Stewart, while being a hero to me comedically in a lot of ways, and much better than me, and smarter and all that stuff, I'm not fit to shine his shoes, but he is being a fucking war pig and an embarrassment to not only whatever it is he does now for a living, but to comedy. What the fuck are you even doing?
Yeah.
What is the point of this? I looked the other way when you gave a Nazi a fucking medal.
Yeah.
I looked the other way. This is unforgivable. And he will never apologize for it. Just like and that's not, I don't want an apology. I just don't care. I don't fucking care. I don't need anything from Jon Stewart. But this is heartbreaking because, John, you were so good at what you did. You were the best. And now you have this gravitas and you're throwing it away. And you're throwing it away to prop up fucking blood-soaked war pigs.
To even have, I could see, okay, you want to be a chump for Hillary, because I guess you went Democrat most of the time, but you have her and Condoleezza Rice at the same
and you
time.
can't land a fucking punch, not even a jab.
At the same time he has them, and that's not blowing his mind after the 20 years that he spent talking about it.
Yes.
Like, if he's like, oh, I still believe in Hillary.
Like,
that's dumb, but it's not as crazy.
But he
as
still
that.
doesn't understand how the war machine works. He's still playing dumb. He's still playing stupid. He knows how the war machine
I heard
works.
of that on his show.
He knows why we went into Libya. He knows why we went into Iraq. He knows why we're still in Syria. He knows why we stayed in fucking Afghanistan for 20 years. It's an exchange. It's to transfer money from the treasury to the military-industrial complex, and that's exactly. Why do you think we're in Ukraine, John? Oh, I know. You're giving medals to Nazis. You're pretending to not know, just like the rest of them. This is. Do you see how I can't get through this? Over to stuff.
I want to point out something right now, Jimmy. I just want you to know and recognize the title of his podcast is called "The Problem with Jon Stewart."
No, Jon Stewart. Turns out he's the problem.
Yeah.
Turns out he wanted to wreck his legacy.
Okay.
By doing the shittiest show in the world. You know, his show's nominated for a fucking Emmy. I'm sure it is, right? Is it not? They just do that now. And it doesn't matter how fucking bad it is what you're doing.
Well, once they gave Obama a Nobel Peace Prize, all bets were off.
That's right.
Nothing.
You know, once they
anything.
gave the White Helmets fucking an Academy Award. All right, let's get back to this. You see what I'm talking about? How brutal this is? It's nonstop like this. Okay, here we go.
The Soviet Union's collapse. They overextended and they got in an arms race with us, and they had all these satellites. Are we overextending America's power, especially militarily, when you talk about an $800 billion defense budget?
Let's assume instead of being in a podcast studio, we were in the Situation, right?
So he just keeps asking that same question about he's like, hey, of course, I understand you're both unrepentant war criminals, and I thank you both for your service. But do you ever worry that we can't afford to keep being the world's worst terror state? That's all he cares about. Can we afford this?
He's trying to reach their hearts, and
yes.
The only way in is that. Like, I know all these people are cockroaches, as the great Gaddafi said, but do you think our powers being stretched too thin? What about our power? Won't someone think of the power?
What about our power?
Or, in the tank, in the Defense Department, wherever we were. Right. Okay. And we're saying, okay, what do you see on the horizon? Well, North Korea is shooting these missiles over our ally, Japan.
Right.
China is trying to build up its blue water navy so that it can compete with us anywhere in the world.
Hillary adamantly keeping an eye on the Chinese Navy. That's how Hillary spends her days in between rounds of Angry Birds.
She gets those outfits at Chinese Old Navy.
And then she uses that term that I've only ever heard Sagar and Jetty use from Breaking Points. Is this? He says the United States should be the only standing blue water navy. What is blue water? Why do they throw that in? What color is water on the other parts of the world? It's all blue water. What are they? Outstanding blue water navy. Oh, a blue water navy?
Oh, maybe the space navy that Trump.
Is there a space navy? She says it here. Let's listen.
It's blue water navy so that it can compete with us anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they throw in blue water? That's like code for each other, like see you at the sex party later or something like that. Blue. We all know blue water, right? Put on your persona mask. Here we go.
We've got, the Russia-China.
Jon Stewart doesn't. He looks like he doesn't know whether to cry or hang a medal around their neck at Disney World right now.
A relationship, it's tricky, but we have to watch it really carefully because we don't know where that might lead. We've got Iran, still a very bad actor, and probably in addition to killing...
We just fucking destroyed the country next to them. We just did that on a lie. We destroyed that, but they're the bad actor. The country that's never invaded anybody else.
Okay, but that's somehow a false choice, Jimmy. What do you, not kill them?
They just keep saying, Libya, Gaddafi, bad actor, Iran, bad actor, Saddam, bad. So we just get to, we have 1,000 military bases. Jon Stewart just sits there like a good boy.
Here's all I took from this interview. Bad actor, Blue Water Navy.
Wow, is he showing us the problem?
Their people will cause some external problems in order to take people's minds off it. We have a lot of issues. So do we just sit back and hope for the best, or do we try to be positioned in enough places with enough support that we can be a good ally to those?
So he's just sitting there letting them pretend that the surface story of why we invade countries and steal their natural resources is real. He's sitting there, he's just sitting there letting them pretend that our foreign policy is based on our actual security. Our foreign policy is making us less secure every day and creating terrorists by the thousands around the world. Because we are decimating the world. We're the ones who set the Middle East on fire and are continuing to do it. And now we're fighting a proxy war, and that the rest of Europe is getting sick and tired of with us fighting in Ukraine. We're blowing up Nord Stream gas pipelines. We're committing terror acts in Turkey. We're turning on our own allies if they don't go along with our proxy war in Ukraine. We are talking about the bad actor. We are the Jean-Claude Van Damme of the fucking world. Are you kidding me?
Steven Seagal.
Steven Seagal.
Seagal.
Let's go, Steven Seagal.
Okay, we have a lot of issues, okay? Are you saying we're supposed to just sit back and stop causing more issues on top of the ones that are also our fault?
So all these problems, anyway, here we go.
We're counting on us.
And you have to watch the potential rise of terrorism again. So you have a lot.
Oh, you have to watch out for people with not big missiles and shit like us.
I thought the terrorism's from home now.
Yes.
Should we be like really focused here?
But I would just say, should the United States be selective in the use of its military power?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
He just says that. Right. What the fuck is wrong with him?
Okay, so the problem with Jon Stewart is his balls fell off. I guess we solved the mystery.
Is Stewart afraid of being Me Too'd? How many teens did he fuck in Shanghai?
Did both of them seduce Jon Stewart at one point, and he has to let them talk? Keep talking.
Watch this. They keep pretending to. He just sits there. Yeah. They're having a pretend. This is a pretend conversation because they're just repeating propaganda that they put in the newspaper to sell the war, and John is pretending like that's real.
Well, you can see how. One thing I'll say for Jon Stewart, because he did on Colbert, bring up the lab thing. You can see on his face that he knows he's a bitch right now.
Why would he do it though? What's in it for?
Because to restore that stupid thing with the highway cars that he was talking about.
He doesn't give a shit about that. Was 12 years ago.
Well, if we could just return to the Obama times, I know it would be better.
Is this how he makes up for hanging a medal around a Nazi? Oh, this is how he makes up for saying the lab leak thing on Stephen Colbert. So now he's got to go super hard shit live?
He's showing, I guess the highway inside of Jon Stewart has to let cars from both of the sides in to restore his sanity.
I think he, when he was speaking to Stephen Colbert, he probably wasn't as scripted as he is right now doing this interview. And I just think this is a genius piece of propaganda for the reasons that you and Kurt have brought up. So Jimmy, you're commenting on the fact that Jon Stewart is supposed to be this comedian that we all look to butcher the establishment and tell us what's really going on and call them out for their lies and make fun of them for it. And Kurt, you're noting earlier, you pointed out, why is Condoleezza Rice included here?
Yeah, right.
But it's very crafty. I think what's going on here is that they're speaking to two secretaries of states who came from two different administrations, the Bush administration and the Obama administration, that are supposed to be super different, right?
Yeah.
Crazy old cowboy Bush, and then very firm and educated Harvard Obama, who rose and became president, the first Black president of the United States. And these were their two secretaries of states. They're women, so they're more presentable in this interview with Jon Stewart than, I don't know, for example, John Kerry might be.
Yeah.
But in Hillary's case, she's also like one of the most hawkish and consequential figures in our recent history. And what they're doing here is covering for their worldview and for the policies that they've wreaked, the havoc that they've wreaked on the world, and agreeing and presenting it as though they are two, they represent two parties. I listened to the full interview. So at times, Condoleezza Rice will detract from Hillary and seem to present a Republican point of view, for example, saying, oh, well, people in the middle of the country are alienated by the elite on either coast. And so you get this false idea that they're speaking for the two different camps in this country. And then you have Jon Stewart just playing the clown, like, but what if we do overextend ourselves? And he's pretending to challenge them while at the core, none of them are confronting the base of their ideology, which is just empire, bogus human rights narrative, and American exceptionalism. And it's very powerful when presented like this, because again, it's supposedly blurring partisan lines and then also bringing up a cultural clown figure like Jon Stewart to kind of put a shiny bow on it.
Very well said.
Yeah.
I got to play the rest of this video.
Oh, good luck.
I got to get
You
through
watched
this.
the whole thing, Anya?
No. I know Anya watched the whole thing. My eyes almost came out of my head when I heard that.
Jon Stewart should make like a movie about your ordeal of watching him do this interview.
It's like
I
Clockwork
didn't
Orange.
watch it. I listened to it on 2 times speed. Big difference.
Oh, so you got through it in 22 minutes. Oh, that's different. Okay.
And I didn't have to look at them. It's really more upsetting when you have to
Well,
look at them.
they're both wearing green, which is the real reason for all those wars they're talking about.
After Afghanistan and Iraq, which we did for security reasons, not because we wanted to spread democracy at gunpoint, but for security reasons.
Although
We just spread
ultimately-
gunpoint. That's all we spread.
So he just lets her say it. He just lets her say it. He just gives validity to it. He went from exposing these people to validating them. This is mind-boggling, man.
He sounds like an awful liberal parent.
So I guess when
bargaining
you're
with their crappy kid, like, okay, but would you think maybe you want to not keep doing that? What do you think? I think I should keep doing it. Okay, honey.
So I don't know how many millions of dollars Jon Stewart is worth, and doesn't make him a bad person. I'm envious, but it certainly changes you. And so I'm sure he's worth at least $50 million or maybe 100. And
Look at his face. There ain't no way that money's
There's-
worth it. Look at it.
And I like that he wears $1,000 shitty T-shirts. And
Yeah.
but this almost undoes every good thing he did. Almost, it doesn't. He still has the
kind
end.
of does, because it takes that legacy and then says, this is what I'm using it for.
Yes.
Everything I ever did, all the conditioning that I ever, everything that I ever instilled in people about questioning. And if I inspired you to do that, now you still respect me and I want you to believe the opposite. It's like it's very dangerous.
You know what he
Now I know why when he came around to promote his show, he did Breaking Points. Of all the YouTube shows, that's the one he did, because they agree with his stupid foreign policy shit.
You know what he reminds me of? Like one of these adults that is like really into Disney World, but they don't bring any kids. They just go themselves and then hang a medal on a Nazi.
This is unbelievable.
He still believes in Disney magic. That's what I take his thing as. And he wants to really bad. The way Colbert wants to believe in the church.
Yes, and Colbert does believe in the Catholic Church still.
We're told that spreading democracy would make the world safer because
Well, actually-
freer countries would.
Well, I think if
be
you
more
if you
peaceful.
actually look at the record, democratic countries actually don't invade their neighbors. Democratic countries.
I mean, he's just sitting there letting them say that.
Hey, take it down the street. You want to invade somewhere. You don't do
Yeah,
it to your
we
neighbor.
don't do it to Mexico or Canada, but we do it like in Yemen. We do it in Afghanistan. We
But
do
we
it
would
in
if we had to.
Libya and Iraq and, Syria. We do it in
Haiti.
Ethiopia. Oh, we do it in Venezuela. Bang, bang, but not our neighbor.
Hey, keep it out of the neighborhood.
Come on, Chile. Hey, Bolivia. Bang, bang. We need shit. Hey, what's all our lithium doing underneath your fucking rocks?
These other places are like animals that attack their neighbors.
We got to bring you some democracy so you pricks don't fucking invade your neighbors. That's what we were trying to do over there. We're trying to bring some democracy to Iraq so they wouldn't invade the other countries. But now we have to go and invade those other countries ourselves.
Hey, it'd be a shame if something would have happened to this regime.
Oh, nice regime you got there. Jon Stewart just fucking sitting there pretending this is real. This is a pretend conversation. What Jon Stewart is doing, if you had a CIA man sitting in that chair, he could not do a better job than Jon Stewart is doing right now to rehabilitate these two blood-soaked war pigs.
Blood-soaked. He should call his podcast that, Blood-Soaked.
Blood-soaked war pigs.
Just change the title of that episode to that on The Problem with Jon Stewart.
Don't harbor terrorists. Democratic countries don't use weapons of mass destruction. So
We're the only,
We're the
one that's ever
only
done
country that's ever used
that.
nuclear
Starting
weapons.
now.
Starting now, going forward. We're the only country that's used nuclear weapons. Plus, we use phosphorus. We use chemical weapons. We do every horrible thing you can think. We're running a torture program still to this day. She helped head up a torture program. They should all be in jail.
Well, you know what this is? It's like when I went, in Bible study and God kills the firstborn of Egypt to prove to Moses. And you're like, how can you do those things? It's not a crime when God does it.
It's not a crime when God
can do
does
what
it.
he wants because it's God.
That's right. Just like the United States.
Yeah, I said God.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
They don't harbor them, but they have them.
Well,
you can't. It'd be hard to. But John, was planned in
but
Germany.
they're not aided and supported by the
I understand what
government.
you're saying. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not contradicting. I'm not disagreeing with you on anything. I get you. I get you totally. I get it. We're all on the same page here. We're all 100 millionaires, and we all fucking love each other, right? We all going to see each other at the party later, huh?
We got to restore sanity.
But always try to look at the converse, right?
Yes.
Because they have in some of these weak states terrorists among them, would you rather have somebody who's actually harboring them and assisting them?
Understood.
So that's the first point. The second point is that.
What, say again, Anya?
You mean the United States and its allies? I mean the terrorists in Libya and Iraq.
Are we
Syria?
teamed up with them now in Syria?
He's just pretending that this is. I got to keep going.
Yes, we need to be more selective,
Mm-hmm.
but I would be the strongest voice, as I know Hillary is, when Vladimir Putin decides to extinguish his neighbor. Should the United States really just step back from that and say, well, that's kind of your business after all, Ukraine?
But when we wanted to extinguish Syria, that's okay. When we wanted to extinguish Afghanistan for 20 years, that's okay. When we wanted to extinguish Libya and turn it into a failed state with slave markets, that was okay. We wanted to what the fuck?
But she goes,
and he doesn't say that in nothing.
When Putin wants to extinguish his neighbor, are we supposed to take a step back from that and stop directly trying to make him do that on purpose? Is that what you're saying, John?
It's been a part of the Russian Empire and so forth. And there are some people in the United States who would say, not in Ukraine, let's do it in Des Moines. And I think that is the more.
We're going to blow up their gas pipeline?
So hilarious that they pretend to give a shit about the people in Des Moines. Isn't that hilarious?
That basket of cockroaches, as Hillary calls them.
I can't do this anymore. I can't watch any more of this. I have to stop it.
He goes, oh yeah, we're going to spend in Des Moines. Those people that didn't want to vote for me. I wouldn't even go take a trip to look at them, let alone.
Can I just say, since I didn't watch it, but I listened to it. I want to share one exchange with you between Hillary Clinton and Jon Stewart that happens right at the beginning of the podcast. And I think it sets up everything that we've just been discussing, because basically Jon Stewart begins everything by saying, we're going to talk to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Condoleezza Rice about the state of democracy, and not just here at home, but really in the world. And what's America's role in promoting such things? Should we really be doing this? Blah, blah, blah. Now Jon Stewart comes in and he's acting like he is so educated about history. He says, I remember the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of history, and American power was going to be expanded throughout the world and extended. There were no more questions about this anymore. And that lasted, I guess, around a week. So he's actually presenting that narrative as something that was positive, but just unfortunately didn't last. But Hillary comes in and says, I think the reason they're having this conversation is because we're worried about the state of democracy, not only around the world, but in our own country. So there are considerable stresses on the system that was built up over so many years that, of course, in my opinion, served our country and the world very well. Wait, have you gone outside recently in the United States? Have you checked in on any of these countries that we've been discussing? The system that she's referring to has not served this country well. It has not served the rest of the world well. This end of history, United States promoting democracy and human rights. It's resulted in destruction around the world and more poverty here in the United States. And she actually outright says that she thinks this worked out well.
Well, yes,
because it worked out for everybody in that room, including Jon Stewart, apparently.
It's a little chaotic, sure.
The tensions within America between liberal voices, conservative voices, the populist movements that are coming out are reactions to, their pendulum swings of what people perceive as persecutions. That we see those fault lines in America. Now, if we look at it in the world, have the actions of America led to a more unstable and globalized situation that has inflamed populism in this country, inflamed it in Europe? And I'll explain what I mean. You talked earlier about the buckets, defense, development, and diplomacy. Our priorities as a country since World War II have really, all the conversations that you're talking about, but there's also this other sort of, as Eisenhower warned, military-industrial complex that kind of has a mind on its own. And I'll give you the example. State Department budget is what?
That kind of has a mind of its own. Kind of. What is this unbelievable nuclear level understatement?
Because how would he be allowed to talk to the two of them together unless he was going to ask in the most punk ass? Well, they wouldn't even be there. I'm sure he thinks something good's going to come of this. I bet he does. You can't even have them on your thing unless you're.
Anya, do you want to say something?
Well, no, just that it doesn't necessarily have a mind of its own. It's not even just about the military contractors. It's about the banks and the oil companies and the real financial and industrial interests that the Pentagon represents. They also happen to pay Hillary Clinton and Condoleezza Rice's salaries. They donate to all the universities. They donate to all the think tanks. They are the ones that use the military to go and open up markets. They use the pretext of humanitarian intervention to do so. And this is what they're defending. This is the world system that they're defending in this interview because it made them all very rich.
Yes.
$50 billion.
And they probably paid Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart did this for Apple TV. So who's paying his salary?
Right. Jimmy, just rewind it a little bit.
Okay.
Because look what they giggle at.
State Department budget is what, $50 billion? A little bit more, but around there. USA.
They giggle.
Uh-huh.
Ooh, was a dictator just stick raped? She's giggling.
Not big enough. Lockheed Martin
Not big enough.
got 70-some billion dollars just by itself. And if you think about a budget as a set of priorities, if we're giving one defense contractor, we sell arms to over 100 countries. We sell arms to countries we sanction. There are conflicts in the world where both sides are using U.S. armaments, Turkey and the Syrian Kurds. Is our inability to control that aspect of our society sowing the seeds for the instability that we see?
That's his question.
If he could just make them think.
That's his question.
He just needs to get their mind.
Am I out of my mind? Is that not the question?
He thinks he's trying, but what he's really doing there is Hillary, and it started with them saying, only $15 billion to the State Department for USAID. Oh, it should be more. That's what he says. Look, the State Department and USAID is another wing and arm of
the military-industrial complex.
The war in Ukraine wouldn't be happening right now without the State Department and the USAID intervention in Ukraine that overthrew the government, put in the pro-Western government, and started the civil war in Ukraine to begin with. So and it's true. I think Hillary Clinton and Condoleezza Rice, they prefer the covert dirty war operations. They would rather be using the State Department and USAID to just destabilize the world through phony human rights groups and media organizations and journalists standing up to Viktor Orban. That's what they want to do. And then when the time comes and all the matches that they lay actually light up, then the military comes in. But they're not two separate things. And what Jon Stewart is supporting here is still the same thing.
He's a left winger. That means he likes Obama robot style killing, not boots on the ground.
They like diplomacy, U.S. style diplomacy.
Here we go.
Around the world, that's leading to this more populist, illiberal pendulum swing. And how do we rein that in?
I understand the question, and I do think it's worth exploring, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I think it is historically inaccurate to say that our defense budget or our arms sale has promoted the authoritarian impulses in Viktor Orban, who was a NATO ally, to Vladimir Putin, to Xi Jinping. I don't see the correlation there.
Guns don't kill people. Viktor Orban kills people.
And this is not to relitigate, honestly.
This again. I swear to God, I'm not going to ask you a hard question.
Please.
I'm not going to expose you.
Honestly, he almost says that like there's a gun pointed at him. He's like, honestly, I'm not.
Please, I don't want to be on that list.
Honestly, I'm not breaking the ground rules of our interview because that's what that is. They have ground rules for the interview, and he's not going to break it. Hey, believe me, I'm not doing that. This is hurting.
What happened in Libya? We take out an authoritarian leader through a military action, but we don't have the civic institutions that you talk about. to back that up, and it creates instability. Or what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. There's a chaos that is born of that, right? Suddenly you have 35 million displaced individuals who migrate towards Europe. Europe feels the heat of what they consider this other that's coming to their borders. It creates the impetus for more populist, more illiberal, more authoritarian impulses to then gain traction democratically. Those are direct results of American military intervention.
Well, let me just finish, and then I'll let Condi talk about that. Look, I think
so what he just said is us going and bombing the shit out of Muslims for 8 years when Barack Obama was president creates a lot of refugees that then want to go to other countries, and then the other countries become right-wing authoritarians who are then cracking down against refugees and immigrants, and it creates all this backlash. And that's what he's trying to say, but he said it in such a stupid, fucking mealy-mouth, overeducated, dumb guy way of talking that nobody knows what he's fucking meaning except other propagandist bullshits like fucking her.
And on the Libya point, this is just such a great, if he knew anything, he could have presented a concrete example. If you remember the Manchester attack at the Ariana Grande concert in the United Kingdom, that was carried out by a Libyan national who had actually fought in the NATO war on the side of NATO as a militia fighter against the Libyan government. And there's actually a recording of Gaddafi on the phone with, I believe it was Tony Blair, who wasn't prime minister at the time, but was obviously involved in negotiations. I think he was a backdoor to Gaddafi at the time. And he was warning him. Gaddafi was saying, look, if you let my country fall apart and create a bastion of radical Islamic terror groups in North Africa, you're going to be getting these attacks in Europe. And then it happened. It happened long after Gaddafi was dead. But I mean, that is Hillary Clinton's legacy. A bunch of little girls killed at a concert in Ariana Grande in therapy for life because she watched it happen.
It's very hard to lump even the examples you just put together into sort of one bucket and say that then caused dislocation. That dislocation meant refugees to the shores of Europe, and that, you know, remember Angela Merkel took 1 million Syrian refugees. The United States had nothing to do with Bashar al-Assad.
Nothing.
So hey, Germany took in 1 million refugees, so everything's okay.
It's not our
She's
problem.
such a crafty liar. I mean, if you play the rest of what she said, she's
Here,
such
I
a
will.
crafty
What?
liar.
And then she says when America had nothing to do with Bala al-Assad in Syria.
Joining forces with Russia and Iran to suppress legitimate dissent. She took 1 million refugees, and Germany did not turn into Hungary.
So go ahead, Anya.
No, I mean, she said it. She's so crafty there because she's like, the United States had nothing to do with Bashar al-Assad doing that. The United States had everything to do with the fact Assad and Russia and Iran were fighting U.S.-backed, Turkish-backed, Qatari-backed, Saudi-backed Islamists in Syria to do the same thing that they did to Libya. Fortunately, Hillary Clinton didn't stay in office long enough to see it through in Syria, but every member of her administration said Assad must go, or her Obama's administration, where she served, Assad must go. Assad is still there, but of course that refugee crisis also had everything to do with U.S. policy, and I just can't believe that Jon Stewart, I mean, it's so easy to retort everything she said. But he didn't.
He didn't.
He's a good boy. Don't you understand that?
I don't know what happened.
I'm not doing that. Believe me.
Okay. All right. Well, Anya, I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for lending your expertise and opinion on this matter. It's just I don't even know if I could go on with the rest of the show after this. I swear to God.
No, and you have a long list. It's like
I know. I got a lot of stuff.
Longer than like a Thanksgiving cooking spread.
I know. I spent like an hour on this one story alone.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Have fun, guys.
Bye,
Thanks so
Anya.
much.
Thanks, Anya. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye. We'll see you November 26th. That's the Saturday after Thanksgiving in Burbank. And then all December, we're going to be in Los Angeles doing Friday night shows. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all the tickets and become a premium member. While you're there, you get all of our videos unedited. jimmydore.com, not Jimmy Dore Comedy.